Now is the time. Not months from now, not years from now, but now. Martin Luther King Jr. once says, change does not roll in on the wheels of inevitability, but comes through continuous struggle. It will be a struggle to get gun laws changed, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't fight for it. Joining me now is Congressman Joe Courtney, Democrat from Connecticut, and Congressman John Yarmuth, Democrat from Kentucky. Thank you both for coming on the show tonight.
Thanks, Reverend.
Let me start with you, Congressman Courtney. The tragedy happened in your home state. What will we be able to get done? When will we get meaningful gun legislation for those victims?
Well, again, last night the President laid out the challenge to our country. I think he very powerfully spoke, really not just as a political leader, but as a parent, that we are failing the test of protecting not only the people of this country, but our children. And now the whole world is watching, literally, because they were watching last night. But the people in that room where I was, the brothers of the victims who were there holding stuffed animals, their parents who, the feeling of bewilderment and grief, and the first responders and teachers, they expect us to not just let this thing sort of blow over. We cannot let that happen. The assault weapon ban, which is certainly being talked about a lot, I voted for that when I was in the state legislature and prepared to do that again. But there, frankly, are other issues that we need to look at in terms of ammunition availability and certainly mental health services and mental health record keeping so that we have a workable database for background checks.
And this issue's been screaming for attention all over the country, but Congressman Yarmuth, you wrote an op-ed today that really grabbed me. Let me just read part of what really got to me. You said, I have been largely silent on the issue of gun violence over the past 6 years, and I am now as sorry for that as I am for what happened to the families who lost so much in the most recent but sadly not isolated tragedy. Now, let me just say in fairness, you've never been a favorite of the NRA, but you challenged your own silence, which I think shows a lot of leadership, and I think a lot of leaders around the country need to look in the mirror.
Well, thank you, Reverend. I started thinking over the weekend that the reason these things die is that we all move on to other things. And we can't let that do that. We owe responsibility to our families, whether they're in Connecticut or Kentucky or wherever they might be. And we need to make sure that we continue to speak out. We continue to engage organizations and individuals around the country who will keep the pressure on legislators to make sure something happens. Keep the pressure on, have teachers and parents from all over the country and psychologists. Ultimately, grassroots support will trump the power of the NRA, however illusory it may be. So that's what we need. That's why we can't let these things just go away. And Joe and I are good friends, and my heart goes out to all the people in Connecticut who are agonizing over this, but their agony is being shared, I guarantee you. We had literally hundreds of phone calls and letters in my office before noon today asking the Congress to do something. So I think this is different, and for one, I'm not going to be lulled into this acquiescence that we can't do anything else. We're going to do something.
So you're saying the way to get this done is grassroots, people all over the country, because this problem of automatic weapons goes across all lines of region, of demographics, of gender, of politics. People are feeling this from the urban to the suburban, Congressman.
Absolutely. No one could look at this incredible tragedy and believe that the answer is to either have every child carry a gun in their lunchbox or to arm principals or teachers. This is not the answer. Congress has a responsibility here. Legislatures across the country have responsibilities. City councils have responsibilities. But they will move very decisively if they know the people are behind them. And there's no question that the people are behind decisive action. action now.
Congressman Courtney, you sat in that room last night, and I know what it is to be among people that have lost something for no reason, but I couldn't imagine 20 caskets with 4-year-olds or 10 years old. I went through that one time this year with a 4-year-old. I mean, when Americans are seeing children being buried, how does any of us walk away without feeling compelled to do something, no matter how cynical or how much we've given up?
When the president did the roll call of the children's names and the reaction in the room, I've been to a number of funerals in my day as well, Reverend, and I have never experienced anything as raw and just agonizing as listening to the response that was happening, again, all over that auditorium. You know, I was telling John this morning, I was driving through back roads in Connecticut this morning on the way to the airport, and I drove by a number of schools in my district. And in every single one of them, there was a police cruiser stationed outside the entrance to the school. It was a plan that the state police and local police did to just kind of reassure parents and children on the first day after this horrible incident. But it really, in a way, also shows how inadequate. We can't turn schools into fortresses. That's just not a solution. And we've got to have a much broader, more meaningful solution to this problem, which, again, the president laid out the challenge. Now we've got to act.
And the people have to act. Congressman Courtney, 54% of those polled by the Washington Post support stricter gun laws. 59% support a ban on high-capacity ammunition clips. 52% support a ban on semi-automatic handguns. There are about 10 laws that Congress could pass right now to deal with the gun problem. Everything from gun trafficking to better regulation gun shows to stopping online ammunition sales. What's holding them up? What is holding Congress up?
Well, again, I think, right now we were just talking to one of our leaders off camera a minute ago about, again, the calendar that we're looking at with the end of the year. But, the key here is just to, again, make sure that we quickly go to the leadership of the House and just say that, we expect that this be dealt with a vote as soon as possible, even this week if it was possible to bring it up as a suspension. But January 3rd is right around the corner, and I think you're going to see, particularly with some of the new members coming in, that this issue is going to come flying out of the gate.
Congressman, we've also got to deal with mental health, but you coming from Kentucky, you coming from a state that it takes courage to stand up, you ready to help lead this charge?
Absolutely. I said I came to Congress for a number of reasons. This wasn't necessarily one of them, but this is now the reason that I'm in Congress as far as I'm concerned. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to lead the charge in my state. I had a Republican member of the Kentucky delegation today, A-rated by the National Rifle Association, tell me the president was right. We need to take meaningful action. We need to capture that spirit while it still exists and feed that momentum as much as we can, because I think we can get change.
And this was a Republican colleague from Kentucky.
Yes, Republican colleague from Kentucky with A-rated by the NRA.
Wow.
So he's ready to do something.
Congressman Joe Courtney and Congressman John Yarmouth, thank you both for your time tonight.
My pleasure, Ed.
Thanks, Reverend.
Coming up,